Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning into the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Crystal, and I am so happy you've decided to join me again today for another podcast. We are actually going to be continuing our discussion from last week's podcast, but a little bit more scientifically. And if you were able to have a listen to it, we talked about what happiness is, how it changes us, how we change with it, and how we can look at obtaining a little bit more of it. And when I say we're going to talk about a little bit more scientific stuff, I want to talk about how the levels of happiness that we have and how we get them actually affect the human body, from the vitamins we need to the foods we eat, and all that sort of thing. And later there will be also a little segment on different retreats you can go on for a little bit more self-reflection. So stay tuned for that. And now we're going to start off today and talk about the types of happiness we have, the different levels of happiness, and we'll also get into the types of loneliness as well. And not to bring anyone down or make them super sad, but it is super important in our existence to be able to see all sides of the things that are or could be making our life better. And it's good to keep an open mind about it, and it's also good to really further your knowledge within the world as you exist in it to get a better handle on these things and appreciate those moments as they're happening, whether they're good or bad. You know, getting knowledge about things and meeting people and hearing their stories, you never really quite know what you're going to find out or how it's going to excite you, or even just how it's going to bring something different to your life. And sometimes, right, we have these experiences with people and we don't necessarily really know how those things are going to be repercussed into our lives, if that's even the correct way to say this. And it may be immediate, it may be in the future, and one day you'll look back on some random moment in your life and think, oh my gosh, like, it's so crazy how that related to something that I'm going through now. So let's segue real quick. And you guys all know about the word happiness. I mean, it's even in the podcast, of course. So it's definitely one word that we can use. But we can also use words like joy, excitement, gratitude, pride, optimism, contentment, and love, just for a few of them, right? And for everybody, each one of those words is going to be a little unique. Each one of us kind of gravitates a little bit more towards one or the other, or maybe we have a little bit of everything. And even though they all mean the same thing to an extent, sometimes they really don't. And there could be a day where you feel all of these things at once. You know, maybe you're traveling the country and you're listening to this podcast to have something to do, or you're sitting in your office on break and you need to get away from the day-to-day, and you know, we hope we can help you with that, right? So now, happiness is kind of elusive, right? You know, we all have it. We're born, we have our families, and at some point we actually do experience contentedness or some variation, okay? in some time frame or at some age. There's always going to be something that lets you be happy, and no one goes around life and is super miserable all the time. And if they do, I hope that's not the case. It would be so heartbreaking. And basically my point is that we all have these goals, right? We don't want to just sink into misery and unhappiness, because that can be super disruptive, just like drugs or alcohol or whatever the case, to mask these things that we're trying to fulfill and work through and obtain. Now, on the one hand, the first level of happiness we can have, which is a very fundamental aspect, is pleasure. We can have physical pleasure, we can have immediate gratification, and typically these ones are a little bit more short-lived. It could be shopping for some new clothes, or eating your favorite meal, or listening to your favorite CD, even playlist, sitting on the couch with popcorn, watching your favorite movie. These are all things that we can do to really give ourselves a little temporary relief or boost of extra gladness. And none of it's wrong. These are all things that happen, but we don't want to get stuck on just one part of it, because just because that one piece is happening doesn't mean it's going to keep making us happy. Just imagine, like, you're living your life, you're making a living, you're raising your family, teaching your kids, whatever your situation is. Maybe you're a bachelor or bachelorette and you live alone and you're really happy, but every day you have to listen to the same CD or watch a different movie just to get a little bit more and of goodness. And again, just recognize this. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, the second type of happiness we have is passion, which is going to be more related to something related like a hobby, or a different source of recognition for job work. Anything that you're really passionate about. It could be ceramic painting. It could be script writing. It could be designing shoes. It could be making a podcast. There are infinite amounts of things that you can do to give yourself pleasure and create those same areas of self-confidence that we might need to gain or keep accruing, so that way we satisfy kind of our ego. It's really what this is about, this level. It's very ego-based in that it can, how should we say, boost our self-esteem, essentially. There's good ego. You can certainly even practice satisfying your ego with ways of like forgiveness and letting go, being honest and open, surrendering your need for control. These are all ego-based things that can hold us back. Even like enjoying silence and practicing gratitude can help elevate you to a different level, a different mental space, right? And now purpose would be the third thing. It's our talents, our skills, how we serve others, how we feel we can give ourselves and make ourselves part of a greater good. We can have fulfillment and long-term happiness. And everyone wants to believe that deep down that their life has meaning and that it's meant for something like a long-lasting application of happiness that can make you grow and have a positive influence on the world. So when we don't, and this is again level 3, so if we don't have pleasures and we don't have passions, then we probably can't get to purpose. So at that point you'd probably still be very sullen and a little bit depressive. Now, the last level of happiness, the fourth one, is ultimate good. And it sounds really simple, and to an extent it is, but that's a definite desire that humanity has, or most of humanity, right? We don't judge, as humans, for a perfect truth, to have goodness and beauty and love and appreciate those forms. And it could also be through your religious beliefs. And even those who don't necessarily believe in a higher power can find happiness in their pursuit of truth, in pursuit of beauty, in pursuit of love, and in pursuit of goodness. And more importantly, and this is the hugest thing, right? You want to find that within yourself, within helping others, whatever that looks like. Okay? And this level of happiness, this fourth level, is often considered the most enduring and profound. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, I've definitely got my pleasures, I got my purpose, I got my passions, but I don't have my ultimate good yet. So how can we keep working toward those things? And how do we keep staying positive? How do we avoid comparing ourselves to others or trying to focus on whose life is better than whose? How do we keep connecting with friends and family? What do we really base our self-worth on? And these are all really good questions to ask yourself during the day or at night, in a gratitude journal, which we mentioned in the first episode, or anything really. The practice of selflessness and doing good for others. It could be helping your neighbor out with raking their leaves, or shoveling snow, or helping some homeless people for a day in a community kitchen, or giving someone a place to sleep at night, something like that. And these are all things that we can do to give ourselves that little extra bit of joy. And it's funny, we talk about these levels of happiness, and if you really actually just Google these, research these, you'll find that there's definitely some differences as far as how many types of happiness is, the examples that they give, the different stages of happiness. These are just some examples that I found that are like the generic aspect of like the overall levels that you can kind of go through to give you a sense of like really where to start. And it doesn't have to be exactly like this. Everyone has their own unique individual story that we should appreciate and we should be grateful for. And we should give gratitude to whatever your life happens to be looking like or working through. And if you're struggling with trying to find a little more happiness or rearranging what that looks like for you, or what your truth of happiness is, it's totally fine. And you have to understand there's also going to be some senses of loneliness as well. And it's not to just like because of the pandemic, right? Because we have different types of lonelinesses. And there's an article from Psychology Today, and this was made back in February of 2017, so it's still fairly recent. And they talk about the 7 types of lonelinesses. You guys know what I'm trying to say, right? So we have new situations that we get in if we move to a city, if we're out at a place we've never been to, we start a new school, there's all this unfamiliarity, right? You're in a whole state of I'm different, right? Not only just an unfamiliar place, but people who have different faiths, people who love doing different things than you do, like outdoors, but you don't, or vice versa. And having a hard time making those connections can give us a sense of loneliness as well. Not having a partner, not having close friends and family nearby can leave you lonely because we don't have those intimate attachments to call upon. And of course, with today's technology, it's a little bit easier kind of to say than like the 1800s, right? Can you imagine you're out pioneering and your family's all the way on the East Coast and you send a letter by horse and it gets there like 2 months later and then you don't know anything because you're just waiting for this horse to arrive. How do they even find you? So now in addition to those, there is the no time for me loneliness, which is like you're so busy, you're so surrounded that you don't give yourself a break. You don't say to yourself, you know what, I need a little me time. I wanna relax. I wanna do what I wanna do. It doesn't have to have you exist around all these things all the time, always being busy and constraining yourself in those matters. So we have, untrustworthiness. We can get into situations where we doubt friends and family or what their well intentions are, right? We want to be able to confide in people and trust them and think that these people that we're bringing into our lives and having with us on our journey are profound and going to not be stagnant and at some point and bring additional beauty and love to us. And it does happen. We've all, I'm sure, had friendships that not lasted or just broken off or for really no particular reason. And lastly, one of the last ones that they quote is the quiet presence of loneliness, right? And it states that, I'll quote this, that sometimes you may feel lonely because you miss having someone else's quiet presence. You may have an active social circle at work or have plenty of friends and family, but you miss having someone to hang out with at home, right? And the key aspect of this first segment of podcast is that we recognize why we're lonely, and we have to address it. If it's one of those 7 things, if it's a combination, if it's all of them, if it's something a little bit different that we didn't mention, we have to take the steps to look at it within ourselves and quantify that and be forward about it and not be scared of it, because when we're scared of it, we don't get to make changes. When we're scared of it, we push things down, and we may not recognize some of those signs, circumstances that may have pushed us in a different direction a long time ago. So, and now if you're with us so far, I want to thank you guys so much for being here for the first segment. Coming up, we're going to talk about happiness as far as the human body. There are some fantastic articles about the vitamins and minerals we need for our actual existence, as well as studies about the human microgut, the biome, and how it relates to our happiness, how it can fend off and achieve for our human conditions. And later on, we also have some amazing material of the world's happiest monk and places that you can travel to feel a little bit happier, or if you go on a retreat and you take time out, how that can help you learn and what that was like for them. So stay tuned.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right, guys, so now we are going to get into the science part of our podcast today. I kind of feel like Bill Nye the Science Guy when we're talking about it. I don't know if any of you guys know who that is. It's like an early 90s TV show with this guy named Bill Nye, and he's an actual scientist, and he would show you videos on how to do experiments and what kinds of science terms there were, and explored space, and it was super informative. It was probably one of my favorite shows, and it had like the catchiest theme song. So anyway, we were going to talk about the human body and how vitamins and minerals can actually, give you happiness. Maybe not eternal happiness, which is, funnily enough, the name of a Chinese movie made from like 2002. I wonder if any of you have ever watched that either. It's pretty interesting. And, they do say that to achieve true happiness, there are 10 simple things that you can do, right? You can the first one is ignore the opinion of others. What others think of you should never outshine what you think of yourself. You should know what your worth is. You should do what you love and love what you do. Those are coinciding. At number 3, you should express gratitude, let go of anger, live in the moment, pay it forward, be yourself, right? Which is always going to be super important. And, we have to definitely know who we are before we can do that. And then the last ones are be honest and smile, which can do a lot of things for people, because even if you're having a bad day or somebody says something that upsets you, if you just smile a little bit, it might actually pick your mood up again. And I believe we did mention that in the other podcasts we had. But at any rate, what is it that makes us human? What are the traits that we have, right? What are we composed of, technically? Well, I'll phrase this correctly because I keep wanting to say it one way and it doesn't sound correct. So, okay. Roughly 96% of the mass of a human body is made up of just 4 elements. Just 4. Oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. With a lot of that's actually in the form of water. And if you look at the chemical breakdown, and I've never really thought about this before, 62% of your body is water. 65% is oxygen. And to just kind of give you guys a further little breakdown of what we are, 16% of us is protein, 18% is carbon, 9.5% is hydrogen, 3.2% nitrogen, 1.5% calcium, 1.2% phosphorus, 6% minerals, 1% carbohydrate, 16% fat, and then under a tenth of a percent would be, under 0.1% would be potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium. There's very other formula matters that actually make up the lasting 1% of that, but I don't think they actually have it broken down anywhere. So since oxygen is the most abundant element, right, it accounts, again, like we said, for 65% of a person's mass, even each water molecule consists of 2 hydrogen atoms bonded to 1 oxygen atom, but the mass of each oxygen atom is actually much higher than the combined mass of the hydrogen, which is in addition to being a component of water. Oxygen is essential for cellular respiration. Carbon is contained in all other organic compounds, which is why carbon is the second most abundant element in the body. Now, that accounts for, again, about 18% of body mass, which is the carbon can also be found in proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acids, which is also found in carbon dioxide. Whereas hydrogen atoms are the most numerous type of atom in the human body, but because they're so light, they only make up around 10%. Hydrogen is in water, plus it's an important electron carrier. Now, for some of the other ones, I'm not going to go obviously through them all, but like nitrogen, we said was 3.3, and it's found in proteins and nucleic acids. Calcium is in the body mass. It's used to build bones and teeth, and it's important for muscle contraction. And phosphorus and potassium are found in nucleic acids. It's also, potassium is used in nerve conduction, and it's a key cation or positively charged ion in the body. So, does that mean that our body contains all of these elements? Well, the average human body contains tiny amounts of elements that serve no known biological function, which could include germanium, antimony, silver, niobium, lanthanum, tellurium, I never get this right, bismuth, thallium, gold, and even radioactive elements like thorium, uranium, or radium. But not all the elements on the periodic table are found in the body. These are just like primarily synthetic elements which are made in laboratories. Even if they don't occur in the body, most of the super heavy nuclei have such brief lives that they would decay into one of our common elements pretty quickly. So now that we know a little bit more about what our body's made of, what does that say for the vitamins and minerals, right? There are 2 main types of nutrients that your body needs to survive and stay healthy. And again, if you're going to go on any kind of diet or exercise program or do some more research to, adjust your lifestyle or make changes, whatever you're feeling the need for, please consult a physician. All right. We want to be safe out there as well as happy. So there are 13 essential vitamins: A, C, D, E, K, and B vitamins, which are thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, biotin, B6, B12, and folate. So the vitamins have different jobs to help keep your body working properly. Some vitamins help you resist infections and keep your nerves healthy. Others, they help your body get energy from food or help your blood clot properly. Like vitamins, though, minerals also help your body function. Minerals are elements that our bodies need to function that can be found on the earth and in foods. Some minerals like iodine and fluoride are only needed in very small quantities. Others, like calcium, magnesium, and potassium, you're needed to have larger amounts of that. And as with anything, you want to eat kind of a varied diet so that you get most of those nutrients, right? Now, how can you get the vitamins and minerals you need? Is it usually better to get the nutrients you need from food rather than a pill, right? Because nutrient-dense foods also contain other things that are good for you, like fiber. Now, older people especially need to be a little bit more cognizant because they can, anyone can get what they need from foods, but if you aren't sure, again, talk with your doctor or a registered dietitian to see if you're missing any of those key elements. You could have like a vitamin B deficiency, and maybe they suggest you eating more vitamin B rich foods rather than taking some kind of naturally made homeopathic remedy, right? And if you do need to supplement your diet, look for a supplement that contains the vitamins or minerals you need without a lot of other unnecessary ingredients. Please make sure you read the labels and avoid supplements with mega doses. Even too much vitamins and minerals can be harmful, and you might be paying for supplements you don't need. So that's just a little friendly tip. Now, I'm not going to go into anything crazy like the measurements for vitamins and minerals like milligrams and IUs, which is the international unit and stuff, but I do want to get into kind of the general amounts that we're really looking at and what that correlates with. Okay, so just a fun quick fact here. There are 4 fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. Now, these are stored in the body's fatty tissues. The other 9 vitamins that we mentioned are water-soluble, and therefore they must be replenished regularly because they're removed from the body through when we urinate. Now, vitamin A plays an important role in growth and cell development. It also promotes healthy skin, hair, nails, gums, glands, bones, and teeth, which is a lot of responsibility for one vitamin, right? And we can get vitamin A through foods like salmon, other cold water fish, egg yolks, fortified dairy products. Now, vitamin D aids calcium absorption and builds and maintains strong bones and teeth. Now, you can obviously, for the most part, everyone knows you can have fortified milk, you can have soy rice beverages, butter, egg yolks, fatty fish liver oil, and this is vitamin D is also made by the body when exposed to the sun, but again, we don't want to be overexposed to the sun. So vitamin E protects fatty acids, it maintains muscles and red blood cells, and serves as an important antioxidant. Now, you can again get these from eggs, vegetable oils, margarine, mayonnaise, nuts, seeds, and fortified cereals. Whereas vitamin K, it's essential for your body for proper blood clotting. So you could eat foods like spinach, broccoli, leafy greens, liver even. But I do see that eggs are definitely rounding up the top 3 vitamins that we have over here. Whereas vitamin C, everyone always takes vitamin C in the wintertime when they feel cold coming on or something, right? It's found in citrus fruits. It's important for your body because it strengthens blood vessel walls, it promotes wound healing and iron absorption. It also helps prevent atherosclerosis. I believe I pronounced that correctly. And it also supports immunity and serves as a key antioxidant. But we can also get it from melons, berries, peppers, broccoli, and potatoes, which personally, I feel like the potato is like the superhero of the food group because you could have mashed potatoes, you could have French fries, you could have hash browns, you could have a baked potato, you could have a whole meal just stuffed into a baked potato. And I just feel like they're so underrated and people should love them more. Now, vitamin B, though, is where it gets kind of interesting because we have all these breakdowns, right? Vitamin B1, B2. So vitamin B1, it helps maintain a healthy metabolism and helps aid in digestion, appetite, and proper nerve function. You can get this from pork, legumes, nuts, seeds, fortified cereals, and grains. Whereas B2, that's essential for energy and metabolism. It aids in adrenal function. It supports normal vision and helps maintain healthy skin. So we can chow down on some fortified cereal again, right? Grains, lean meat, poultry, dairy products, soy rice beverages, or raw mushrooms, which, does anyone eat raw mushrooms? I'm not sure. B3, though, it uses it's used to metabolize energy and promote normal growth. In large doses, vitamin B3 can also lower cholesterol, which you'll get from lean meats, poultry, seafood, milk, eggs again. So eggs are definitely going to be the second champ of the topic today, I can tell. Legumes, fortified breads, cereal, and then the essential vitamins your body needs, which are pantothenic acid, which is B5. Okay. It's relatively easy to combine. It helps your metabolism and normalizes blood sugar. And honestly, almost all foods contain vitamin B. So I guess we could just pick something up and chow down. Now, B6, it again promotes healthy metabolism and metabolism of carbohydrates and the release of that energy. It also does play a role in proper nerve function and the synthesis of red blood cells. So things like meat, fish, poultry, grains, cereals, bananas, green leafy vegetables, potatoes, soybeans will all have that essential nutrient for you. B7s, they play a role in maintaining a healthy metabolism, and you'll get that from egg yolks, soybeans, whole grains, nuts, yeast. And I believe lastly we have B9, which is important for pregnant women. It helps to make DNA, RNA, red blood cells, and synthesize certain amino acids. Vitamin B9 is also important for pregnant women because it can help lower birth defects. So you'd want to look at maybe eating some liver, yeast, leafy green vegetables, asparagus, orange juice, fortified flour, avocados. I know, shout out to the avocado toast eaters. Legumes as well have B9 in them. B12 has similar properties. You can actually eat all animal products to obtain B12, okay, again, which helps with blood cells, DNA, RNA, your nerve fibers. And that was the last of the essential vitamins. So coming up, we're going to definitely still take a little bit more look into gut health and talk about how that can fend off loneliness by what we eat. And we're also going to look at the happiest monk in the world and some different retreats we can go to or that are around that can help us find our inner peace, right? So come back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Alright guys, so now we're going to look at how we can improve our mood through what we eat. And how does this work? Well, it all comes down to the brain. A healthy cognitive system is essential to regulating mood, and certain nutrients have profound impact on maintaining normal brain function. Some researchers that I found in a Washington Post study have associated associations between foods and the brain, and identified the 10 nutrients that combat depression and boost mood. So all your vitamins like calcium, chromium, folate, iron, magnesium, omega-3 fatty acids for sure, the vitamin B6, B12, and vitamin D, as well as zinc. So you want to try to find foods that contain these nutrients for a midday pick-me-up to promote long-term happiness, or to even ward off, those little worries we have, like, did we turn the stove off or unplug the coffee pot? So we did already briefly touch upon how certain vitamins, where we can kind of get them and what they're really used for. So calcium is definitely going to be still one of those things. The calcium deficiency itself does affect more women than men, so women should take a little bit more care to meet the daily requirement. It does also help reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. And I can get more information at some point, but I do believe that the recommended dose is 1,000 milligrams per day for adults. You could almost quote me on that. Again, foods for calcium would be collard greens, yogurt, kale. For chromium, we can look at having broccoli as well. And that chromium itself plays a role in increasing the brain's level of serotonin, norepinephrine, and melatonin, which helps regulate emotion and mood. So because chromium works directly with the brain's mood regulators, it's been found to have an effective treatment for depression. So like folate, of course, moving towards that, the folate itself helps the body create new cells and supports serotonin regulation, which serotonin passes messages between nerve cells and helps the brain manage a variety of functions, from determining mood to regulating social behavior. And folate deficiency can cause fatigue in addition to lowering levels of serotonin. So a pair of power nutrients like folate and B12 can often be paired together to help treat depression itself. So then iron, which plays an important role in the body, from transporting oxygen to supporting energy levels and aiding muscle strength, like we briefly touched on. Low level of iron can also lead to fatigue and depression. Although iron deficiencies actually appear more frequently in women than men, especially women of childbearing age. So keeping enough iron in the body is essential, as fatigue, apathy, and mood changes can often, again, lead to depression. And you're going to want about roughly 18 milligrams per day for women and 8 milligrams per day for men. Now, magnesium can help with irritability, fatigue, mental confusion, and predisposition to stress. It helps to develop of serotonin, which is a major contributor to feelings of happiness. And it's actually a common element in homeopathic remedies for balancing mood. You're going to want roughly about 310 milligrams per day for women and 400 milligrams per day for men. Whereas omega-3s is an essential fatty acid. Those play an important role in brain health and contributes actually up to 18% of the brain's weight. So the body doesn't naturally produce omega-3, so it needs to be consumed from outside sources. Again, deficiency symptoms would be similar to the other ones we've mentioned, like fatigue and mood swings, memory decline, and depression. Roughly, let's see, how much did we say that was needed on that? Actually, it doesn't give an amount, just that some variety of fish and some, what am I trying to say? Oh, goodness. Some consummation of those things like fish and salmon or omega-3 pills is going to be good for your system. Vitamin B6 helps to send messages from the brain to the rest of the body, and deficiencies in B6 can cause short-term anemia, and long-term effects actually would be a weakened immune system, confusion, and depression. And you're going to want roughly about 1.3 milligrams per day for each adult. Now, vitamin B12, which aids in the creation of red blood cells and nerves, if you have low levels of that, you can cause short-term fatigue, slowed reasoning, and paranoia, and again, with the depression. So B12, again, is naturally found in meats and animal byproducts, and you're going to want about 2.4 micrograms of that per day. So then we have vitamin D and zinc. Lastly, now vitamin D obviously helps maintain the immune system and protect bones. Low levels can be associated with both men and women. Lowered levels of vitamin D are a result of an indoor lifestyle, limited sun exposure, and inadequate rich foods. Roughly about 600 IU units, which stands for International Unit. It's a type of measurement equally reserved for vitamin A, C, D, and E. And that's per day from adults ages 15 to 60. But lastly, we have zinc. And if you have low levels of zinc, it can lead to a variety of ailments, including a weakened immune system, loss of appetite, anemia, hair loss, and depression. Vegetarians need as much as 50% more zinc than non-vegetarians due to the body's low absorption rate of plant-based zinc. And you're going to need roughly about 11 milligrams per day for men and 8 milligrams per day for women. Again, if you're doing any kind of diet changes or exercise regimens, please consult your physician or a nutritionist for accurate information. So what does this mean for our gut health? And how does any of this even relate? Because we still haven't talked about the happiest monk on earth or any of the retreats that you can go to find a little more space. Okay, so the gut biome, right? Let's get into that. Now, both wisdom and loneliness appear to be influenced by microbial diversity within the gut, says this new study, which was sourced by UCSD as of March 25th of this year. So the evolving science of wisdom rests on the idea that wisdom's defined traits correspond to distinct regions of the brain, and that greater wisdom translates into greater happiness and life satisfaction, while being less wise results in opposite negative consequences. And now the human gut microbiota is comprised of trillions of microbes, bacteria, viruses, fungi that reside within the digestive tract. Researchers have known for a while about the gut-brain axis, quotation marks around that 3 words, which is a complex network that links intestinal function to the emotional and cognitive centers of the brain. This communication, this two-way communication system, is regulated by neural activity. So hormones and the immune system alterations can result in disruptions to stress response and behaviors, said some of the authors, from emotional arousal to higher order cognitive abilities such as decision making. Now, some past studies have associated gut microbiota with mental health disorders like depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, as well as personality and psychological traits regarded as key biologically based components of wisdom. So the research recently has connected the gut microbiome to social behavior, including findings that people with larger social networks tend to have more diverse gut microbiotas. Now, the study was analyzed using fecal samples. I'm going to only try to say that word once because ew. But it was measured in 2 ways. Alpha diversity, referring to the ecological richness of microbial species within each individual, and beta diversity, referring to the differences in microbial community composition between individuals. So what they found was that, again, that lower levels of loneliness and higher levels of wisdom, compassion, social support, and engagement were associated with greater phylogenetic richness and diversity of the gut microbiome. A more diverse gut microbiota may be less susceptible to invasion by outside pathogens, which could contribute to and help promote better resilience and stability of the community. Now, it is possible that loneliness may result in decreased stability of the gut microbiome and consequently reduced resistance and resilience to stress-related disruptions, leading to the downstream physiological effects such as systematic inflammation. And the bacterial communities with low alpha diversity, they may not manifest overt disease, but they may be less optimal for preventing disease. Thus, lonely people may be more susceptible to developing different diseases, right? Because now you have been studying this matter from human excrement, and you're realizing that based on their feelings and the food that they're eating, they have a healthier gut, is basically what they're saying. And the relationship between that was particularly strong in older adults, which suggested that older adults may be especially vulnerable to health-related consequences of loneliness, which is consistent with some prior research. Conversely, the research has said that social support, compassion, and wisdom might confer protection against loneliness-related instability of the gut. The more diverse gut that you have, it may buffer the negative effects of chronic stress or help shape social behaviors that promote either wisdom or loneliness. Now, they did note that animal studies suggested that the gut microbiota may influence social behaviors and interactions, although the hypothesis has not been tested on humans. Now, what does this really have to do with any of this stuff, right? We've gone into like what the body's made of, what the foods we can eat, what way the vitamins affect our body, and now we're learning that we have to have a healthy gut in order to be happy. Not necessarily. I do believe it's part of that, but there are other simple, effective ways to make a change in your happiness and mindset. You don't want to confine yourself. You want to do what you love. You want to enjoy the little things in life and be altruistic. Take care of your body and your mind. Learn how to say no. Don't give up when things are hard. Try meditating. Try gratitude journals. Try socializing more. Zoom meetings, family phone calls. Anything to get you kind of out of that mind space. And maybe try eating a little bit healthier. Maybe don't jump in and completely reroute everything that you've been doing, but make small steps and see how it feels. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no, because at the end of the day, we want to be happy. We deserve to be happy, and we deserve to fulfill ourselves with all of those feelings that we mentioned earlier. You could also try something like, we mentioned volunteering, but we could wake up earlier. We could spend money on experiences. We could drink almond milk, smile, surround ourselves with happy, healthy people, breathe properly, laugh, cry, have intimate moments, whether they're intimate or intimate. And when it comes to food, we all love good food. I can't adequately describe the place that wings hold in my heart, but I don't eat them every day. So something like quinoa, split peas, lentils, salmon, mushrooms, a little bit of dark chocolate, yogurt, sauerkraut, grapes, bananas, bok choy, turnip greens, adding some or all of these things into our daily life, or some of our daily life, can have a profound impact on what we feel, how we act, and the mentality that we allow ourselves to continue with on the day-to-day. Now, with the pandemic, it's definitely escalated things from what we normally would do. We don't go out as much. We don't go to the grocery store as much. We want to find good, healthy recipes to do. Smoothies are also a great way to get all that vitamin-packed nutrients and material that we require. So you can easily buy some frozen fruit, put in a couple ice cubes, get some almond milk or regular milk, whatever you're fancy. I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't really have much of that. If any, I try to avoid it. And, a good blueberry banana smoothie goes a long way for a good start in your day. But now that we've just gotten all of this information in, right? I know I've probably sensory overload over here. We're going to slow it down a little bit, and in the next segment coming up, we're going to meet the happiest monk, according to scientists, in the world. Like the happiest monk in the world ever. And he's 69 years old. We'll get more into that later. As well as, finally, lessons that we can learn and retreats that we can go to find a happier self. See you soon.
the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Okay, everyone, it is time for our final segment of today's podcast show. So if you're with us still, thank you so much, and I'm really excited for this segment. Okay, so jumping in, we have the world's happiest monk, according to scientists. Okay, so he says that the secret to being happy takes just 15 minutes. 15 minutes, that's just one whole segment of this podcast. So I know that everybody has at least that in their day, okay? So who is this guy? If you Google it, the name Matthew Ricard pops up. He's 69, and this original article was, the article was originally out in 2017, so he may or may not still be 69. Anyways, he's a Tibetan Buddhist monk, originally from France, and he's been dubbed the world's happiest man. He participated in a 12-year brain study on meditation and compassion, which was led by neuroscientists from the University of Wisconsin, a Richard Davidson. So what did they do, right? They hooked Ricard's head up to 256 sensors. Those little sticky diodes that they put all over the place, right? Or maybe not, because I guess if you had hair, it would just rip your hair out. So I'm assuming that he doesn't have hair. And they found that when Ricard was meditating on compassion, his mind was unusually light. Now, Ricard, who says he sometimes meditates for entire days, without getting bored, admits he's generally a happy person, although he feels his happiest man title is a media-driven overstatement. So, what's his advice on this, right? He says, well, the answer comes down to altruism. You don't want to be doing me. He says the reason is because thinking about yourself and how to make things better for yourself all the time is exhausting. It's stressful and ultimately leads to unhappiness. So it's not the moral ground. It's simply that me all day long is very stuffy, and it's quite miserable because you instrumentalize the whole world as a threat or a potential sort of interest to yourself. I'm quoting that last line, right? So if you want to be happy, Ricard says that you should strive to be benevolent, which will not only make you feel better, but also make others like you more. And now, what's really the difference between benevolency and empathy, right? Because we know that if you're empathetic, you show empathy for others and you recognize their feelings, right? But benevolency is having a disposition for good, right? So if your mind is filled with benevolence, you know, like the passion and solidarity, it's a very healthy state of mind that is conducive to flourishing. So you yourself are a much better mental state. Your body will be healthier, so it's been shown. And also people will perceive it as something nice. And you want to train your brain like a marathon. You know, everyone, Ricard believes, has the ability to have a lighter mind because there's a potential for goodness in every human being. Unless you're like, you know, a serial killer. And then there's something actually chemically abnormal going on with your brain. But with mental training, we can always bring our level of happiness to a different level. It's like running. If you train, you might run for a marathon. You might not become an Olympic champion, but there's a huge difference between training and not training. So why should that not apply to the mind as well? So if you could put them all together, the skills, the attention, the emotional balance, and resilience, you could say that happiness is a skill that can be trained. And you can do this by just starting to think happy thoughts for 10 to 15 minutes per day, Ricard says. This is his advice. He says, typically, when we experience feelings of happiness and love, it's fleeting. And then something else happens. And then we move on, and we move on, and we move on to the next thought. But Ricard says, instead, concentrate on not letting your mind get distracted and keep focused on the positive emotions for the next stretch of time. And if you do that training every day, even just 2 weeks later, you can feel positive mental results. And if you practice that for 50 years, you could probably become a happiness pro too. Now, this is, of course, also backed up by neuroscientists. So David found from his study that even 20 minutes of daily meditation can make people much happier overall. And I just love that story because we don't really get to hear enough about that. We don't get to talk about how people practice these things or how it's changed over time and how hard they've had to work at it or the challenges that they've had to overcome and face just to get to where they're at now. And it's not, you're not born with it, I mean, you are, but you aren't. You are, but then life happens and we get distracted and we get unreasonable or we get angry or frustrated and we want more for ourselves. And so again, really what I'm hearing is that it just comes down to balance. You want to be happy, you want to be giving of yourself to yourself, but you don't want to do that too much. You just want to be happy about your thoughts. So maybe think about your cute dog that is ready to play outside the door, or your kids that are going to come running home from school after the pandemic is over and they're actually all back in school and they want to share their day with you, or your spouse who cooks meals with you at night, the nice walk in the park you had, the lady or gentleman that complimented you on the street today. So there's just a small sampling of what we can kind of look at to keep our mindset happy. And now I'm really excited to show you guys, I can't even show you because this is a podcast, but to tell you about the 10 best spiritual retreats in the world. And we know modern life, and that we were just discussing, can get super hectic. We're grinding every day, and even the best of us get down, and it's a little surprise that we seek to escape it when vacation comes around or just randomly when we have time. So outside of the usual sunbed and pina colada destination retreats, there's a nice popularity coming up for alternatives, which aims at resetting both body and mind through mindfulness and meditation in nature. So for some, that could be an afternoon hiking. For others, it's an entire retreat. And we're looking at these globally as well. It's not just dictated to one particular region of the world. I feel that would be an unfair bias. So, we're looking across North America, Eastern principles, we're looking all around the world. And even if you never get to go to one of these retreats, at least they're out there, and maybe you can look on their websites and see if they have any helpful tips or hints, maybe some videos that they've posted to aid you in your journey on happiness. So, let's get started. The number one spot in this area goes to Vana, which is in Uttarakhand, India. And I apologize if I butchered that. I really want to get it right, but I'm just going to leave it at that. So this retreat is 21 acres. It's a wellness community, and it works with Tibetan healing, yoga, and other holistic therapies. Vana is the definitive retreat aimed at recentering the self amidst sleek, modern lodges enclosed by tranquil mango and lychee orchards. Oh my goodness. So you can while away the days in the center's meditative cave or shrine rooms or spiritual study library before coming together with other Vanavasas, which means forest dwellers, at sundown for musical performance and locally sourced vegan-friendly, if you wish, meals. The number 2 spot goes to Isha in McMinnville, Tennessee. This is the birthplace. Let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. From the birthplace of yoga to the certifiable birthplace of country music, we can head to this retreat where you'll find Isha, the Institute of Inner Sciences, a place designed for ultimate wellness, blending organized yoga and meditation programs in serene surroundings. It's centered on a giant golden dome where its founder, Indian yogi and author Yogi Vasudev, runs inner engineering programs dedicated to raising human consciousness and promoting global harmony through the ancient science of yoga. Our third spot goes to Song Sa in Cambodia. This is based on a private island. Our next Vipassana retreat, it offers barefoot luxury to a T, down to earth, yet with all our creature comforts. Song Sa promotes bespoke spa and well-being retreats focused on either detoxifying, blessing, or healing over 3 to 5 days. It is hemmed in the jungle, so it brings together meditation, massage, biorhythm sessions, and bath rituals, all blessed by their resident Buddhist monks. And the pictures are phenomenal looking. I mean, the water is just so blue. It's this tiny little island retreat with these little itty-bitty houses and these cute little trees. And I wish I was vacationing there. Our fourth spot is Sunrise Springs Integrated Wellness Resort in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It fuses both Eastern and Western lifestyles in the sun-soaked U.S. city of Santa Fe. Professionally led with an emphasis on medicinal healing thanks to its staff of doctors, nurses, and psychiatrists, Sunrise Springs is a solid choice for those wanting a mental health plan backed by science, as well as access to media facilities. Guest time is balanced with softer healing activities such as animal interaction and free relaxation in a tranquil setting. Our number 5 spot goes to Kalani in Hawaii. This is another state-based area. It's the largest retreat center in Hilo with an added emphasis on adventure. So there's an endless opportunity for guests to immerse themselves in yoga, meditation, and jacuzzi sessions. And what's great about Kalani is its added facilities include a pool, gym, and life skills studio for learning the likes of lahuala, weaving, hula, tai chi, and dance. You won't find a phone or television in your room, but the center's selection of art, preserved heritage, and fine 120-acre jungle backdrop will ensure that there's more than enough for you to feast your eyes on. Coming in at number 6, we have Esalen Institute, which is in Big Sur, California. Now, this is a renowned spa wellness center for its epic natural landscapes and mouth-watering Pinot Noir. California does provide travelers with the perfect setting for wellness. It's one worthwhile resting spot located on 120 acres with ocean and mountain views on all sides. The main lodge at Esalen House, a number of facilities including a dining room, deck, sunroom, and kitchen with premium private suites and shared rooms available. And you can also attend sub-workshops, but rates do start at about $405. I don't know if that's a day or if that's like a weekend package, so please do your research. Coming in at number 7, we have the Monasteries des Augustins in Quebec, Canada. If you feel like traveling back in time, you can get yourself there. It's a 17th century monastery turned spiritual healing retreat in the old walled city center. The Monastery des Augustins retains its original features and antique furniture while now catering to holistic health. You can choose between a self-guided meditation retreat, yoga, or sleep rejuvenation program, or even come as a pilgrim to seek spiritual guidance from the few remaining nuns in the residence. Both are friendly and authentic. Coming in at number 8, we have the Temenos Retreat Center, which is in McGregor, South Africa. This is a fusion of ancient Greek healing and South African hospitality in the McGregor-based center, which offers a hefty choice of wellness weeks. In addition to silent retreat and Vipassana meditation retreat options, besides the requisite yoga, Temenos brings its guests aromatherapy, South African flower essence readings, and a vegetarian menu to die for, which I've read that the lemon meringue pie is especially delicious. So the Forever in Bloom grounds at Temenos allow guests to embrace silent reflection in nature with morning walks through the entire reserve before healing sessions with the center's trained therapists. Number 9, comes to us at Ghost Ranch, Abiqui, New Mexico. It's our second New Mexico offering is the mysteriously named Ghost Ranch, based within the dusty, sunburnt landscapes of Abiqui, overlooking cliffs and canyons, and I really hope I pronounced that right, but I probably did not. It's formerly attended by artist George O'Keeffe. Ghost Ranch is a getaway to remember where guests can join in a number of unique retreat programs as well, including women's leadership and soulful marriage. And coming in at our number 10 spot is Shakti 360 Ledi, India. Now we're returning to India for the zenith of spiritual vacations. We take an overnight train journey from the capital of Delhi to Kathgodam. Aside from the hub for Himalayan lumberjacks, Kathgodam is also the meeting point for guests seeking Shakti, a perfectly remote spiritual retreat way up in the Himalayas. So for the resort, staff travel with guests on an 8-hour car journey, followed by a short mountain hike to reach the famed Himalayan Lodge, which is elevated 8,000 feet, overlooking the peaks that come between North and West India and Nepal. It's a sustainable sanctuary crafted from stone. You can try the walk experience through the village, a cultural hiking experience through remote Himalayan villages, and fill the rest of your day with yoga and guided meditation. So I hope this has been a great help for you guys, and let me know if you're able to check out any of these places or what you think of them. As always, thank you for joining us today and listening to the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast. I'd like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. And if you could please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Big shout out, thank you, and join us later this week for another amazing episode. And as always, let us be happy.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitchers, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness podcast.